Welcome along to Tweet Street Scotland Occupied Home of the Satirical Saltire. I'm Simon Bridges, aka Peter. With me today, we've got another Alba candidate, or another member of Alba who's going to be a candidate for the local council elections, Trish McPherson. Hi Trish, how are you doing?
Hi Peter, I'm fine, thanks. How's yourself?
I'm good. It's good to see you. Eventually to actually see you in person, because we've talked a wee bit offline. I need to say thanks for your contribution in getting us our Christmas special as well. Now that I've got you here in person, because I know that you had a big contribution towards that, so I appreciate that. And for anybody who didn't watch a Christmas special, I don't think there'll be many. It was Alex Salmon, so Trish was a big contributor to that, and I need to thank her. Right, about you. So you've got a busy schedule because you're going to be running for council.
Yes.
What made you decide to take that step of running for council?
To go from an activist and supporter of Alba to running for council, it was what they're doing, what the Scottish Government are instructing councils to do in schools. As far as the self-identification, the gender reform is concerned, because I just think it's a terrible tragedy, and a huge amount of accidents and regrets all waiting to happen. And I thought, well, if I can get in to my local council and be that voice of reason, then I've got to try and make a difference. Just got to try. So I'm trying to get the word out to as many people as possible, because a lot of people still don't know about the gender reform, and particularly how it's going to affect our school children. With these gender neutral toilets, and with this, with the whole queer theory being threaded through the whole curriculum. As we were told was a proud achievement by one government minister, or more than one government minister. So it's not advertised when the Scottish Government campaigns, or rather when the SNP runs their campaigns. They don't highlight these things to parents, and I think they're particularly harmful, particularly parents not being informed. Children encouraged to keep secrets, and teachers encouraged to keep secrets from parents about their child who maybe identifies as a different sex in school. I don't think that's, I think schools have got a duty of care to act on the parents' behalf in schools. And I think with the proposals and the changes that are happening and have happened already are dangerous. So I want to try and make a difference at local council level. Hopefully that'll be fed back to the main parties, and they'll realise that parents in Scotland do not want our children interfered with. It's just wrong. They're there to be educated in maths, English, all the rest of it. They're there to expand their horizons. They're not there to be boxed into a wee corner and told what they are for the rest of their lives. It's just it's horrific.
I second what you're saying there. I'm a concerned parent myself. A currently primary school age child. So I do share your concerns on that. It worries me. The safeguarding aspect seems to be blown out of the window. It's the debate surrounding GRA and self-ID, and the knock-on effects of getting into schools. What do we call them again? They're adult entertainers for me, and they're taking them into schools.
Absolutely. One of the things that kind of switched me on to this whole debate was when I seen the newspaper reports of was it Mary Black and Paisley?
Yeah, with Flowjob. Yeah.
Yes, with an adult entertainer called Flo Job, to come in, you know, with his woman face costume on to teach children. You know, it's just wrong.
Aye,
We send them to teach that, you know, we send kids to school to learn different language, to count, to read, how to make friends, not how to be tied into a wee corner and force fed what's an ideology that not everybody agrees with.
I see the same thoughts. Right, so the ward that you're going to be running in, tell us a wee bit, tell us the name of the ward, and a wee bit about the ward, if you don't mind, please.
Yeah, okay. It's the ward I'll be standing in is the ward that I live in. It's Ward 5, Aberdeenshire. The name of the ward is Peterhead North and Rattray. It's a reasonable sized area, and it takes in, I stay rurally. I don't have an immediate neighbour, fortunately for me. And
Or for them.
Yes, fortunately for them. But it travels right down the coast, and right into the north part of Peterhead town centre. It also takes in St Fergus village, and you probably are aware of St Fergus. That's where our oil comes from in the North Sea, straight into a big pot in St Fergus, straight past my front door and off down to Englandshire.
Yeah, it's again, it's absurd that, isn't it? See, just even hearing it out loud, it's like, why do we not get any benefit for it? Right, but anyway, sorry to interrupt you, Trish. On you go.
Yeah, so that's my ward. I see I've realised recently that I knew that Scotland was self-sufficient in gas, but I didn't realise that we were 5 times self-sufficient. You know, we're self-sufficient and then 5 times over. That's crazy. So so why are we paying all these extra prices for fuel to heat our homes? Why are people worried about being able to fill up their cars because of the cost of petrol? The Alba Party is calling for an immediate cut on the duty that's going to be taken. You know, it's not only these big multinational companies that are going to be gaining from this price hike. It's going to also be the Westminster government who takes their share of these nice increases. But who pays for that? You, me, and every other Joe blogs that's in Scotland. Or even that's in the UK. But it's particularly galling in Scotland, particularly galling in St Fergus, when you know that that's the point of coming on shore, and then going straight off to Boris Johnson and his ilk to divvy up the way they see fit, not any way that benefits Scotland.
Never is anything to the benefit of Scotland or the people in Scotland, as far as I can see. I mean, you look at Westminster, you look at London and Westminster particularly, and you see how the skyline has changed over since the oil boom in Scotland. And then you look at places throughout Scotland, not just where you are, but throughout Scotland, where it's declining, poverty is increasing, cost of living, the amount that we pay for things here seems to be on a par with what's happening south of the border, at least. But we don't get the benefits on a par as what south of the border doing. I mean, this too wee, too poor, too stupid thing, again, I think that's Westminster gaslighting us. You're too stupid because you're allowing us to do it. And it's not that we're allowing, we're trying to do whatever we can to prevent it. And independence for me is the way that we do that. Absolutely. What's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. How many nations have become independent and asked to go back into the UK?
0. Without
wind power, without wave power, without all this oil, without all our water. You know, they've all been successful nations. There's nothing about Scotland that's too poor. Naturally, our resources, we are, plentiful and bountiful. And it's about time that Scots got on board. I mean, we're on board, Peter, but why are other people not on board? And I think it's because they're being drip fed through our mainstream media mostly. Everybody goes into a shop and they see the front page of the newspaper telling them about what party Boris Johnson went to. Who cares? I don't care. I don't care what party he went to. What I care about is my country. And what I want to see in the front pages of papers in Scotland is what our government is doing to harness that and to make things better for ordinary people.
Because I can't see any improvements at all. I mean, it's decline everywhere that you look. There's more poverty going to be reaching these shores because of the energy increases. Even the ones that are due to hit us in the 1st of April, it's going to impact even further. It's going to be pushing more families into poverty and making it harder for Scottish people to live.
Absolutely.
What sort of things do the Alba Party have in store to counter that? But again, this all depends on Alba being successful, not just in the council elections, but further on down the line when it comes to general elections, etc. What sort of things would Alba be looking to introduce there then, Trish?
Well, of course, the Alba Party has introduced a 5-point plan to alleviate child poverty. I don't know about you, Peter, but when I was growing up, there was poverty. But then we didn't have 30, 40 years of all this, all our natural resources coming to fruition. So our kids should be, they should be able to achieve whatever they want in life. And money shouldn't stop them. But the growth in food banks, that's what we're getting. Potholed roads, that's what we're getting. An instability even of our power networks we've seen in the recent storms. Even that can't be fixed. And, when I look around me and I see all these things and I hear about people going to food banks, I'm speaking about people that are working. People that have got two people in their family working, and they're reliant on a food bank. What's that about?
It's madness. And I always try and do a comparison with a like for like, and the instant comparison's Norway. And if you look at how for their fuel boom and how their economy and the people of the country with the wealth fund and everything else were catered for, and yet when Scotland had the boom of fuel, it seemed to be that it made it easier to send politicians in Westminster's kids to the likes of Eton and everything else, whereas we're sending our kids to food banks, or no, that we're sending our kids to food. We're having to go working families or the working poor, which is a term that I hate, because as you say, you've got 2 members of the family out earning a living and still in some cases having to visit a food bank. You've got elder generations having to decide whether they heat or eat. And it's like, look, these are the stark things that I can draw, and there's probably so much more that if you're in
it's not just that, Peter. I mean, I was speaking to an elderly friend of mine. She is 87 years old, and she'd come across, she's a cracking lady. She's got all her marbles about her. Her body doesn't quite keep up with her 20-year-old brain, but she's a cracking lady. And but she uses Facebook to keep in contact with people. It's great, except when she clicks on those country and western adverts, that's not very good. But she was telling me that she'd come across a story of someone who said that they were on a fixed energy tariff and they were paying at the moment £200 a month. And they've got an estimate in from their fuel company to tell them that in the year ahead, they expected their direct debit to rise to £800 a month.
Quadrupling the cost. I mean, how's that sufficient? How are you supposed to survive that?
Well, someone who's on a fixed income, who's on a pension, it's not even just about the money. Even if you could magic it up from somewhere, how worried are you when you're in your late 80s and you're sitting at home on your own through COVID, and your heart just breaks for them.
Aye,
and it's about time this government put used Alba's proposal, kicked that into touch, with a windfall tax on these companies that are raking in billions for the benefits of billionaires. And also the immediate VAT rate cut, that would help people.
Aye.
It's just, it's all generations, it's all across Scotland that it's affecting. And you can possibly expect that from a Westminster government who, for a long time they've gone around the world enriching themselves. Yes,
plundering from every land that they set eyes or set foot upon.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm all for giving Westminster the portion of the blame when I feel that they earn it, because they earn it more times than any. But there's, again, taken from the national perspective, and no, it's going to be a bit broader than local elections at the minute, but I don't feel that the Scottish government are doing anything to help our situation. In fact, they're going to the point of working in lockstep as a four nations, and they're
nations approach.
They're hindering ordinary working class people in Scotland. Scots, as we call them, they don't need to be born in Scotland. It's people that are Scottish and Scottish thinking is the way that I try and describe that. But we're all being impacted, and the easy thing for the Scottish government to do is point at Westminster and say, well, they're to blame. It's them that's
look over there. There's a magpie.
Yeah, a magpie. I love that. Right, okay. So there needs to be a portion of the blame that we go, because it's this too wee, too poor, too stupid bit. So we'll fall into the last bit, the too stupid bit. We then getting treated as the too stupid by the Scottish government as well, because at the end of the day, they've had mandate after mandate.
Absolutely.
No to deliver GRAs. That's what's getting pushed by the leader of the SNP. But to gain Scotland its independence from Westminster, so that we can run our own affairs, so that it's no somebody else to blame. It's our own self to credit for how good the potential that we've got. What's your thoughts on that, Trish?
Oh, absolutely. You see all the remarks from, a lot of them are fantastic speakers. Nicola Sturgeon is a very convincing person. She's a great speaker, full of positivity, and then you look a wee bit deeper, or you realise how what she's in charge of is actually affecting you. Of course, Nicola herself has never been to Westminster. She's only ever been to the Scottish Parliament, but those parliamentarians that are elected to Westminster do Scotland no credit whatsoever. Great speeches and great hope for a lot of them when they went down. But the likes of Ian Blackford, he has come out with some stonking speeches, walking out of Westminster. That was great. But I want a wee bit more than just bellyache. We can all moan and complain. We all do moan and complain about how we don't get our fair share. But we elect them as representatives of us. And we voted for them on the basis of their constitution, which is putting Scotland's interests first and getting us out of the UK Union. So what attempts have they actually made to do that, apart from all the shouting? What have they actually done? What steps have they put in motion to get that done?
Oh, it appears that there's been no steps put in motion. The last thing that I'm aware of that was for us to be removed from Westminster was when Alex Salmond submitted the white paper for India F1, where there was preparations put in place for Scotland becoming an independent country. okay, we were 45% was the official, again, air tags, official result, of which I was one of those 45%. So at least I can be happy with that. But well, there you go. So we've got a couple of representatives of the 45%, which is good. But we see, and so many people are on this now that they're doing freedom of information requests to try and find out information, and it's alarming the fact that you're getting back that there's nothing in preparation. There's more people preparing to implement the Gender Recognition Act, which let's be honest, nobody voted for SNP, or very few people, if any, voted for SNP in the last general election, last Scottish election for GRA.
And despite what the current leader says, there's still no mention of it on their election pamphlets. No mention at all. So Nicola Sturgeon can say, oh, we were overwhelmingly voted for, if she likes, but she was overwhelmingly voted for wearing the cloak of Alex Salmond.
Yeah.
She's been wearing it for years.
It's again, it's the phrase standing on the shoulders of giants, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
She's shrinking down to no tomb tabard, the trim tabard, to show that, well, there's been nothing done. It's been taking everything away from Scotland, putting obstacles in the road of Scotland achieving its independence with the S30, with selling off the renewables, even up to this date, selling off the renewables at, I don't know, a pittance. And it's like selling the family silver, to coin a phrase, you know. What's happening? Oh, you keep an eye on the front door. Meanwhile, they're sneaking out the back door with all the valuables. And it's if we stand for this, then potentially that too stupid that everybody's talking about. And that's how people are trying to voice their concern, as far as I can see. What's your thoughts on that, Trish?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with every word that you say, Peter. I can remember in the lead up to 2014, you know, I had this, I know we didn't win the referendum. We lost out by that 5% margin either way. 5% isn't a lot when you consider that the polls were taken from, what was it, 23% to 45% because it was a campaign. So that doubled. So what did they say we're at just now? Is it about 50%?
Well, at the heady days in the pandemic, we were at 58%. It's now balancing out, run about 50-50. And as you say, that's without a campaign. Just to touch back on what you'd said earlier, that was going in 2014 to 23 to 45, and that was just with the campaign. I can only dare to dream, so to speak, about what would happen if we did have a campaign.
Absolutely, but
much
if it doubled, Peter, if it doubled, we're at 100%. That's probably not realistic, but you know that's a fact. It was doubled. You know, that was only 7-8 years ago. So what's happened in those years? What's happened is that we've got in my opinion, a failed leadership of the independence movement, or what we assumed was the independence movement, what we assumed we were voting for. And as I say, she's worn the cloak of Alex Salmond. She can make as many smears and insults as she likes.
She likes doing that.
Yeah, she absolutely does. But we expect, I mean, you don't hear it reciprocated, do you?
But again, that shows Alex. I've got an admiration for Alex Salmond. He's a statesman in comparison to anything that I've seen coming for Scotland before. And you had the Labour ones before, but they weren't for independence. You know what I mean? So it's a case of, since we had a party of independence in government in Scotland, it showed the difference between. I mean, you look at the improvements in Scotland for that period that Alex Salmond took over and became government, and the improvements that were made to Scotland, a lot of which still get claimed to this day by the current government in Scotland. And
Well, they have to.
Well, because they've nothing else, and that's the thing. Is there's nothing else to give credit. Nothing else to give credit, because they don't give them credit for anything. They've actually tried to remove them from the history of Scotland, which is another
They wouldn't do that.
slap in the face. Oh no, they can't, because there would have to be a clearance, another clearance, and it would have to be all us included to remove any history of that, because there's people not going to allow that dream to die. The dream shall never die as long as we've got breath in our bodies. No,
absolutely. I don't believe. You know, that was a great phrase at the time, but I don't believe it's a dream, Peter. I believe it's there for the taking.
Aye.
It's a reality. All we need is for our politicians that we elected to get up, rise up, and take it. Just take it. It's ours.
I know.
Our sovereignty belongs to the people.
That's it. It belongs to all the folk of Scotland that
doesn't it doesn't belong to them.
No, and I mean, there's been talk, thankfully, for some people about the claim of rights. That's making a wee bit of a stir this week, especially. I believe that Scotland, the people of Scotland, are sovereign, and that we get the same as we didn't get any Scottish education, Scottish history and education when you're in Scotland. These things are no spoke about, because if people get to know about them, they know that the rights that they've got, and people will actually stand up and fight for those. And when I say fight for those rights, stand up for themselves and believe that, well, no, this is the right thing for us to be doing as a nation. And I mean, Alex was a great one, and for me, and pointing out not what we can't do, but what we can do.
Absolutely.
That we've got the complete opposite in Holyrood at the minute. It's all the things that you can't do. You can't do this. You can't do that.
You can't protest. You can't protest outside Holyrood, even though it was designed for that purpose by the architect.
It's again, all of these things. These are pointers for me as to why did all of these things happen. These things have happened. There's ulterior motives. There's a gravy train there that a lot of people are still keen to see to the last stop. Yeah, to the very last stop. And yet, all the while, you've got more Scottish people going into poverty and getting deeper into poverty. And perhaps it's to the point that there's going to be people die as a result of the austerity that's already been placed in Scotland and throughout the past, whatever term the Tories been there have been in government. And that's how I go to the point that, well, there's only so much we can blame the Tories for, because Tories are going to Tory. It doesn't matter where they are. They're going to continue Torying. So,
well, that's the thing. I mean, if we think back to Nicola Sturgeon, you know, speaking about her disdain for Margaret Thatcher. You know, Margaret Thatcher, I grew up in 1970s Glasgow. I completely diametrically opposed to everything that Thatcher did, the destroying of all our communities, you know, taking away our social housing, everything that she done, absolutely antithesis for me. But for Nicola Sturgeon to say that, you know, she got into politics because I think she actually said that she hated her, a word that I was always brought up never to use. It showed I don't know, it just showed a narrow, a kind of narrow vision, you know, and this bad feeling that's been put out around the country, you know, one person opposed to another. Where's the unity? I mean, a leader should be uniting their nation, regardless of their political colour, regardless of who they want to vote for in a local election. They should be the person in charge, and you know, the MSPs and the MPs. Their job is to serve our best interest. We gave them those jobs, and it's about time we made them accountable, and we can make them accountable in the May elections.
Absolutely, that's the start of it. I mean, because that's got the potential to hold up legislation that the government are trying to force upon us. Because the first thing that you mentioned was the GRA and self-ID and the impact it would have on safeguarding and kids, etc. But if we look at there's up to 80%. Again, it depends what polls you would actually look at. So if we go the spectrum, between 70 and 80% of the Scottish electorate are against the GRA in the format that they're trying to introduce it. And yet, when you had 62% is voting to remain in the EU, and we were promised we wouldn't be taking out the EU against our will, that number's increasing in the government that we elected, as you said, to prevent these things from happening. No, just preventing, tolerating it, and doing nothing about it. They're actually working, for me, they're working against the people who elected them, and no anywhere for the people who elected them, all the while splitting that unity, because it used to be, and again, it was all parties and none. It seems to be the only thing but me. It's a me situation with Nicola Sturgeon, her face everywhere, and again, a lot of people refer to it as like a cult-like figure, and that was never the case. In 2014, it was about everybody, and it was about and that's how it grew. That's, for me, that's how it doubled.
But also, Peter, we had a leader of Alex Salmond, and we had his deputy working what we thought was just as hard alongside him, Nicola Sturgeon. So who's the person that's working alongside Nicola Sturgeon and keeping her feet on the ground now that she's leader?
Oh, there's nobody keeping her feet on the ground, because her head's in the air. I would go as far to say her head's off her arse, and that's me that's just been brutal about it. I mean, because she's not going to suffer the poverty and the deprivation that we are. Okay, she's too busy taking every photo opportunity rather than doing the thing that she was elected to do, even in her own ward. So people need to start opening their eyes. They need to start questioning things, because it's this typical establishment divide and conquer that seems to be happening. Oh, well, we'll ride this gravy train by making sure that women are protected, by dividing families. By, oh, well, we want to be progressive is the buzzword. We want to be progressive. Well, hold on, we're not progressing. We're being regressive here. They're regressing women's rights. You're regressing the safety of children. You're regressing in poverty situations. You're not doing anything that's benefiting anybody, and you're not even. It doesn't seem as if they're standing up. And for me, that's somebody that's like in cahoots with, or on the guarantee of, well, you'll remain in power there, and you'll not be affected. Don't worry. These, again, it's just silly jocks. You know what I mean? That are going to be affected. Is to coin the Westminster phrases that get, and slurs that get thrown towards us. I don't know how people aren't critical enough thinking to notice all of these obvious differences between the heady days of 2014, and I'm saying the heady days because the 18th of September was a bad day for a lot of Scots.
All of us, yeah.
It started off promising. Well, the 19th of September, the time the count was confirmed, was the really bad day, and then Alex made his speech, which had grown men greeting everywhere, and grown women crying everywhere. But she inherited that at the highest, and we can see the decline. If you
she put on that cloak.
Yep.
On that day, and she's been wearing that same cloak ever since. It's about time she started sewing her own cloak.
Aye, but again, she's an empty jacket, so it would be. It's effectively. She would.
The jacket's too big for her.
Aye, effectively, it'd be Emperor's new clothes. Would be the cloak that she would fit into.
I mean, for whatever reason, if she can't do it, and these MPs can't do it, and the MSPs can't do it, step aside. We've got people in the Alba Party who'll be glad to take Scotland forward, glad to speak up Scotland, and glad to improve life chances for Scottish people, not British.
Aye, it's sickening. It really is. As a independent supporter, as a pro Scotland. I mean, there's terrible things about Scotland, right? But there's some absolutely fascinating things about Scotland
that we don't know.
that we don't know, right? Because we're told by the colonial masters on every mainstream media channel and in every red top newspaper that coincidentally the Scottish government paid towards keeping alive to a point with a was it a £3 or £5 million £3 million investment in the media. Again, that's we decry how we get fed all the rubbish and told and kept. I don't mean kept in our box, but they try and make sure that we can't climb out the box that they think they've got us in. We've been out the box, we've seen what's possible. We look around about the rest of the world and we see what others like us are achieving and going, how can we know do the same? Because we know that we can. But we're told that, well, no, we need to recover in the union. We need to work in lockstep. It's a Four Nations approach. Then the most absurd thing that I've heard, I mean, I've never been a member of a political party. And the reason I've never been a member of a political party is because I want to still be able to justifiably say, it doesn't matter which party it is. Well, no, that's wrong. I want to still be able to call it, right? But Nicola Sturgeon came away with something the other day, and she doubled down the other day on this no-fly zone. The Ukraine situation is terrible. War in any country, whether it be Ukraine, whether it be the Yemen, whether it be in Palestine, whether it be in Somalia, whether it be Iraq, anywhere that war falls upon. Syria is another one that we need to mention. It's the innocent people that end up being the ones that pay the price through their governments, no having an agreement of some sort, whether it be over ethnicity, which I totally don't understand, how somebody with white skin is valued at a higher level than somebody with brown skin, black skin, whatever colour of skin you want, purple skin, green skin, whatever. There should be no differentiation between, didn't matter what colour of skin you've got, and you've got all of these things happening, and we supposedly, I definitely want to get rid of Trident. I'm Bairns, not bombs, all day long. The nuclear deterrent that we've got on pretty much on my doorstep. For the leader, somebody that wants to get rid of, or allegedly wants to get rid of the nuclear weapons that we've got here, to openly talk about keeping an open mind on a no-fly zone, and the Ukraine situation, knowing that the Scottish people are peace-loving people, and that okay, there's a lot of things that we don't know that have happened through the media, because you only get the propaganda that they want you to influence you by. But then you've got Nicola Sturgeon twice saying about keeping an open mind, then doubling down on it and saying that keeping an open mind about this no-fly zone. Hold on a minute. That's potentially going to involve us when we don't need to be involved. Okay, we can be concerned. We can try and deal with helping refugees from any country that have displaced through war or whatever reason.
Yeah.
But she actually made me join a political party, so she did. And I thought I would never, ever in my life say I was going to join a political party. But I had to join the Alba Party. I had to. Because all the things at the Alba Party, sorry, just to finish on this, and I'll let you expand on it. Poverty, women's rights, independence, right? The EFTA is something that some people agree with, some people don't, but you don't always agree with absolutely everything. And I felt as if I had to add my weight to the disdain for this government, and to find something that would suit me, because it was never going to be a unionist party that I was ever going to be. I don't vote for them, so becoming a member of them was never an option. But the Alba Party and everything that I can see them doing, and the sounds that they're making, I'd be a hypocrite to go, well, no, I can't do this, and I disagree with the statement in the no-fly zone so much that it made me actually join the Alba Party. So that's a wee announcement to everybody. They're just so that everybody knows. Sorry, Trish, on you go. I didn't want to cut you off. I just want to emphasise that point.
No, you've taken me aback there, Peter. I knew that you weren't a member of any political party, but I didn't realise that that's what spurred you on to try and make a difference and amplify the voice. No, it's you know, somebody once described her as a pygmy politician.
Aye.
And that's, you know, it's whatever is popular. I don't deal in populism. I didn't like Trump because he was a great media twister. I didn't like his performative politics. But the leader we have now seems to have modelled herself in much the same way. It's all about a bandwagon. You know, it's the Me Too bandwagon. It's the Ukraine. I'm not saying bandwagon, but you know, it's in the news and get out the road. I need to get in the picture. There's something I can join in with because that's something that's getting a lot of coverage. So get my face in there. We've got to have substance to our politics. We've got to have people that are going to stand up and be counted and not take a photo opportunity. Photos are great, and if they're joyous, that's fabulous. But for as long as there are children going to their bed cold and hungry at night, get out of the goddamn picture and get on with doing something for Scotland. Aye,
I mean, another iconic world leader, Nelson Mandela, no longer with us. Nelson Mandela. He had one of his quotes was, "A leader shouldn't be seen when we are having good times. It should only be when there's danger that the leader steps forward." And there's danger, and she's shrinking into the background, only to make herself available for photo opportunities. And maybe that's the reason why that she refused to meet Trump, because she knew that she wouldn't be the centre picture. She knew she wouldn't be the main person in that picture. Because the narcissists don't want to associate with one another because they clash, because it's an ego battle. It's a battle of egos rather than an embracing of minds. They can't do that, and that's the way I see her. She's narcissistic. She's done nothing for Scotland, and I'll no censor myself for saying how I feel that she's been over the term that she's been in. I mean, there was a lot of, as I say, she was brought in and it was all right, we'll see how this goes, and it should come in the crest of a wave, and people were emboldened with we got so close, and then we sent 56 MPs down to Westminster in 2015, 2017 the Brexit vote, and that cloak, as you say, the cloak of Alex Salmond has been unfastening by each day, and she's new the emperor's new clothes. It's new the emperor's new clothes that and all of these student politics. I mean, the local elections are the thing that are happening on the 5th of May. Vote Alba 1 on the 5th of May, everybody, in your ward.
And it's a number one, isn't it?
Yes, it's a number one. That's correct. It's always Westminster's fault for our woes.
Magpie.
Aye, Magpie. Here we go. So there's a 1 that you need to put in the box. There'll be new images appearing through this broadcast. Official images that I've been lucky to have shared with me. So there's going to be the elections on the 5th of May. But Alex Salmond, again, I'm going back to talk about Alex Salmond, because he had mentioned it being student politics, and we're seeing that more than any. When you've got allegations that Nicola Sturgeon had phoned a specific harasser of Joanna Cherry and Joan McAlpine to stand for election in the Glasgow ward. A chap called Declan Blench, I think the name is, and I know he's standing in the Glasgow ward. But these are students. These are, as Alex says, it's student politics. It's trying to keep people who, and again, I'm all for if if you're good enough, you're old enough. In any format, whether it be football, whether it be boxing, whether it be politics, if you're good enough. But you've got these kids with no life experience. They're talking about hair dyes and holidays and going out drinking wine and what have you. But what have they achieved? What can they do in local council? Well, they can certainly know when to stand up to somebody that they go, oh, well, right, we're put in, you're going to be my number one candidate, and I want this done and I want that done. I'm going to do this. And they go, and again, without bringing other people that have gone before in, there was somebody said that it's potentially burning down the house with these people getting allowed that limelight, are thrown into that limelight with not being able to make decisions. They're effectively just mouthpieces and jobs that they shouldn't be in. When you've got people that are qualified for those jobs and qualified to do a better job through life experiences, through their knowledge, through whatever else that they've got behind them, rather than, oh, well, I read a book about this, so therefore, because you can have book smart people that have got no success other than being able to rhyme off all the books that they've read. What's your thoughts on that, Trish?
Well, I'm not actually familiar with the people that you're speaking about. Of course, that's because it's Glasgow and I'm more focused in my area. But what I would say is that I don't think that, I agree with you, age isn't a barrier. I don't think you're ever too old or too young to try and make a difference, an enhancement to people's lives. But I would like to think that rather than have read a book somewhere, that people have got a wee bit of passion. I mean, we've got a young councillor standing in Aberdeen. He's only 22 years old, Robert, but I've heard him speaking, and he speaks from the heart. He speaks off the cuff. He doesn't have to read a book or take instruction from his boss about what to say. He just speaks from the heart, and he speaks for his community, and he's passionate about the green spaces in Aberdeen. And he's going to be standing up for the people of Aberdeen that have they've got a green community space up there. It's called St Fittix. That's where they had the Aberdeen launch last weekend. It's for the community, and the proposal at the moment is to get rid of that and develop housing. But it's the only green space that they have. But I mean, there's a boy that's connected to his community, and he's standing because he's connected to his community and he wants to make a difference. Not because someone has said, oh right, your opinion agrees with me, so come over here. Someone who's learned it.
Robert Reid, that you're speaking of. I've had Robert on we've done an Alba Youth introduction to Alba Youth, and we also done a Alba Youth panel, and like the rest of them, Robert Sean just like the rest of the youth, and I said that, well, without being demeaning to the younger generation, it appears that the kids are all right, because you've got somebody that knows his brief, he knows his ward, he knows the things that are going on there, and he sticks out as one of these ones that you go, they're switched on, they know what they're doing, they know what they're talking about. There was something I noticed about him on Twitter, because obviously this is a Twitter-based podcast, but there's something I noticed about him on Twitter. It was something that was said, and the first comment was his, when he's like, well, I disagree with this and I disagree with that. And it was somebody for another Alba, one of the Alba Laku type thing that had posted that, and he gave his objections to what they had posted. And I'm thinking, that's somebody that's not afraid to I don't mean to go against the grain, but to speak up when it's necessary. Just, I see what I hear what you're saying there. However, these are my thoughts on it, and it, just to go back to, it's not just agreeing with what the person at the tap's saying. It's having the wherewithal to go, well, right, okay, I've heard that, but here's my objections to it, and giving a reasoned argument or a reason for disagreeing.
Yeah,
and bang it up.
Yeah, and it's not always a case of you know, or for me anyway, I mean, I've got an open mind. I'm quite happy to be convinced that I'm wrong on something if you can convince me, if you're right. If Robert's obviously the same, he doesn't mind debating issues. And that's the way politics should be. That's the way it used to be. And that's the way it should be. We don't get edicts from high saying, you know, you've got to think this and you've got to say that. Just coincidentally, we all seem to be like-minded. We're all standing because we want to represent our community and core values of core, I would say, socialist values that we all have, and a compassion for our fellow man that we traversed this lifetime with.
Right. Well, we're almost at the end, Trish. So I want to. There's a couple of wee questions. One's a wee bit trying to be humorous, and the other one's serious. Now you're up towards the coast, right? So your ward is Peterhead, is what I think the people call it, or Peterhead.
The Blue Tune.
The Blue Tune. Peterhead. If you're no fairy place and you try and read it, it's Peterhead. If you're fairy place, it's Peterhead. Right, and Rathray is your ward, but you're up towards the coast. You didn't happen to see any pronouns flying by over the past few days, did you? Because they seem to go missing off a lot of the SNP government's bios over the past few days. But on a serious note, your ward, what message would you like to give out to the voters in your ward and why they should vote for you?
Okay, well, I mean, my ward has the same, or the people in my ward has the same issues that everybody else across Scotland is facing at the moment. Everyone is not even out of the pandemic. And we've got this cost of living crisis. It's horrendous, but what can we do about it? Well, we can start standing up for ourselves. We can start sending a message through our councils to let them know what's important to us and what they can do for us. Not what they can restrict from us, but what they can do for us. And they've got to do it by consulting the people, not by being part of yet another little clique in the nice council offices somewhere. They've got to be listening to the people on the ground. You know, when people on the ground are objecting to follies, at the moment we've got a bit of a folly happening in Peterhead. They're creating a bandstand in the town centre, which is an absolutely great idea. But the shops are empty because small businesses can't afford the rates. They're building a new school. Goodness knows what kind of section of toilets they're going to have in it. But for the people of Peterhead and Rattray, and for the parents of Peterhead and Rattray, they should know that I'll stand up to defend safeguarding rights for children in my ward. And I will do that whether I'm elected or not. I won't stop. It's far too important an issue. I would also say that councillors have to make themselves more available and more open and more accountable to the people. And I'll give you, if I'm elected, I'll give you that accountability. I'll listen to you. I'll listen to your local groups. I'll listen to you as individuals. I'll come out amongst you. You know, I'm not going to be somebody sitting in a wee office somewhere, ticking a wee box. I want to hear from people. I want to make people's lives better. So vote for me. Vote Trish McPherson. Vote Alba 1 in the May elections, please. Thank you, Peter.
Very welcome. Right, so if I was up there, I'd be voting 1 for Trish McPherson. So if you're up there, get your votes readied for this lady here, and make sure that you're taking everything on board. It's the STV voting system, so make sure you understand it. But Alba 1 is the message that I'm trying to push from now until the 5th of May elections. It's just over to you then, Trish, to say goodbye for today. Yeah,
okay. Well, I'm just grateful to have been given this choice, to this chance to speak. Peter, thank you very much for it. You're doing an absolutely fantastic job, and I think everyone in Scottish politics is grateful to have somewhere to go where we can discuss things like grown-ups. So thank you very much, and thank you to all the audience members who have tuned in today. And I'll give a special thanks to my big brother, Big Andy McCall, who is my #1 supporter and also the ALBA International Branch Secretary.
Aye. So a big shout out to well, first of all, to Trish McPherson, to our big brother Andy. All right, big man, hope you're doing well. So it's for Tweed Street Scotland occupied, for the satirical Saltire, for Cinnamon Bridges, aka Peter. It's goodbye from now. Vote ALBA first on the 5th of May.